There's several levels of discharge. There's an honorable discharge, there's a general discharge, and then everything else is other than honorable. There's several ways to get an other than honorable discharge, but in general, that discharge is a bar to VA benefits.
Are you able to still get benefits if you have other than honorable discharge?
To get benefits with an other than honorable discharge, in general, the rule is no. If you go before a discharge board and have your discharge upgraded, and that's not through the VA, that's through a discharge upgrade, in that case, VA will no longer find your discharge a bar to benefits. If you don't do that and you work within the VA system, you can still get around it in a couple of different ways. So we have seen that with veterans who have multiple periods of service. If they have, 6 years of great service and then they messed up and the last 2 years were bad, you can sometimes get VA to split that service up so there's an honorable period and a dishonorable period. And you can get benefits for anything that happened during that honorable period of time. There's also a couple of ways around an other than honorable discharge. For instance, if you have a vet who's had misconduct that was a series of misconduct, one thing after another, or if you had a vet that was AWOL for more than 180 days, there's a regulation that provides that VA has to look at whether there were compelling circumstances that caused that. So, for instance, it could be things like 17 years old, got sent to Vietnam, had 8 combat operations in a period of 4 months, went home, went AWOL. He had mental health problems from that, etc. VA found that those were compelling circumstances. There was a reason he did what he did, and it wasn't a bar to benefits anymore. And so there are some ways to get around it where they will look at your background. Was there a military sexual trauma? Was there impact on you from combat operations? And then an absolute last-ditch effort, we go with insanity. People have it in their mind that we mean criminal insanity. That is not the case. VA's definition of insanity is a lot lower than that. So for VA, they're looking for, did your mental health cause such a problem that you acted out in this way? You did something out of character for general behavior that caused your discharge. If your mental health is what caused you to do the act that got your other than honorable discharge, that's another way for VA to say, maybe that's not a bar to benefits. So there are ways around it. You can't always get around it. But when there's a reason for what happened, it's something we need to look at more.
What is the process for kind of starting that chain of events to try to get it looked at?
So you file a claim. If they're doing what they're supposed to do, they're going to look at that. But you should point out to them, these are my compelling circumstances. This is what happened. Here's what's going on. They very often will go ahead the first pass and tell you no. Not always. Sometimes they go ahead and divide the periods for you and do things like that. They're going to look at it. If they say no, what they will a lot of times do is say you get healthcare benefits only. So they will provide healthcare for things like PTSD, but they're going to say that you can't get compensation for that. And so then you appeal that with your argument about whether it's insanity or compelling circumstances.
And as far as filing to change the status of your discharge, that's a whole other area. Is there a series of forms for that?
Yes, it's completely outside what we do. We only work within the VA system, but there is a whole separate way to go before a discharge board, and there are forms to file for that. And you can do it on your own. You can get help with that.